Barbara says in her book, pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. To illustrate this point, she reminds us that as Paul was writing the verse in Philippians that we've been examining, he was in prison, chained to a Roman guard, waiting to be executed, and he was talking about joy. He had a good attitude. He says, in conclusion, friends, fill your minds with those things that are good and that deserve praise, things that are true, noble, right, pure, lovely, and honorable. This tells me that it's a mind thing. What do you spend the majority of your time thinking on? Is it work? What to fix for dinner? Your finances? Be like Barbara, who thought of God even as she was cleaning. When you feel your joy slipping away, make up your mind to focus on what is good. Have we not all tasted and seen that the Lord is good? The end of Philippians 4:8 would be an easy part to overlook. It says, put into practice what you have learned. We have to do our part, don't we? We have to avoid worry, have an attitude of thanksgiving, rest in God's hope, and focus our minds. We have to try. We can't sin against God without repentance and think He will reward us with joy. Sometimes I don't even want to be joyful. I'm not in the mood. I want to growl. I want to grumble. But the funny thing is, just as laughter is contagious, so is frustration. Have you noticed that? Customer service is a prime example. You have a problem and you call the 1-800 number and you're ready to tell this person and she's going to sympathize with you. Hello? Right off the bat. Hello? Yes? What is your question? How could you feel that? I could feel it. It's contagious. Hello, we're having a lovely day at such and such. What can I help you with today? It's different, isn't it? It makes you feel different. Joy spreads. A soft word turns away wrath. It may take a conscious effort to adjust your attitude, but it's worth it. And I have this devotional, and I stumbled across, I guess as I was putting this together, because it was on May 8th, and the devotional for the day was called Anticipation. And it says that psychologists have studied that anticipation has healing powers. So anticipation is when you know something good's going to happen, like a child before Christmas. But the same is true of its absence, nothing to look forward to, which really struck me because I can identify with that. There are times when I'm like, okay, let's look at Sasha's life. I wake up, I go to work, I come back home, I fix dinner, I go to sleep. There's not a whole lot to be excited about in that scenario, but like I said, it's a mental thing. Sometimes you just, hey, I'm alive. These are the things I'm thankful for. I can anticipate glory someday. I have hobbies that I get into. I have friends to fellowship with. Researching all of this and talking about storms wouldn't be very effective if I didn't sit down and consider a storm that happened in my life. The time, if I look back, that has been the closest thing to a storm in my life was when I turned 15 years old. At the time, my father was retiring from the Army. We were in government housing, which after you're out of the Army, you can't live there anymore. So we picked up from Georgia and we moved with him to Kentucky to live with his mother. I don't think anyone thought this was a good decision, but my dad thought he could find work in Kentucky. He didn't. But anyway, my mother, my dog, and I were stuck living with someone who did not want us encroaching on her territory. At first, our host seemed very gracious. She did not like animals, but she let me keep my dog in the room with me. There was only one small bathroom, which we all had to share. For the most part, my dad was out supposedly job hunting, and when I wasn't at school, my mom and I stayed shut up in our rooms. I had a room, she had a room, we kept the doors shut. The only time Mom and I ventured out into the house was Thursday nights. My father and his mother, every Thursday night, used to go play shuffleboard. I don't know. That was their night to do that. They would go, they would leave us alone, and me, my mom, and my dog would enter the living room. It was like a little party because we had the house to ourselves, and we would watch ER and Friends, and we had the whole house to ourselves. In the end of this time, my grandmother told my mother and I to leave her house. It was probably one of the most painful episodes of my life, to be rejected by a family member when the circumstances were completely out of our control. Living there had been no picnic anyway. I always felt like I was an intruder. I was never comfortable, and I yearned for a home of my own. In fact, when my grandmother broke her leg one weekend, she needed a cast, and her walking made this terrible sound on the wood floor. It was like, ka-clump, ka-clump, ka-clump. And we used to joke, me and Mom, that there was a monster coming down the hallway, ka-clump, ka-clump. Even then, we had things we could laugh about. We had joy. It's difficult to remember now, and I should have written it down, but a friend of ours during that time prophesied that Mom and I would have our own house. It seemed at the time like she was crazy, but I'm very glad to report that now we do. God is faithful. Hebrews 12:15 says, "Guard against turning back from the grace of God. Let no one become like a bitter plant that grows up and causes many troubles with its poison." If you back up to 12:1-4, it reads, "As for us, we have this large crowd of witnesses around us. So then let us rid ourselves of everything that gets in the way, and of the sin which holds on to us so tightly. And let us run with determination the race that lies before us. Let us keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, on whom our faith depends from beginning to end. He did not give up because of the cross." Verse 3 says, "Think of what he went through, how he put up with so much hatred from sinners. So do not let yourselves give up, for in your struggle against sin, you have not yet had to resist to the point of being killed." This brings us to bitterness, which is another stealer of joy. I could look back at this time and how my family treated me and have nothing to do with them and no sympathy for them and just tell you that they're awful people. Or I could say, hey, I've got a house now of my own and I don't have to sleep there anymore. Psalm 30:11 is a favorite of many people. It says, "You turned my mourning into dancing." That reminds me of something that happened while we were staying at in my grandmother's home. As I told you, I had a dog. His name was Sammy. And because of the isolation and the just rotten situation, I'm so glad I had him. He was my buddy. He went everywhere with me. And it was just, I was very attached to this animal. And it was a Thursday night when they had gone to play shuffleboard and we were watching TV that he started acting very strange. All of a sudden, nothing caused it. He hadn't eaten anything. Nothing had come into contact with him. And I think my mom noticed it first and she said, "Look at the dog. He's acting really weird." And his legs got real stiff and he kind of just laid over and his ears, they used to stand up and they kind of went down, and I don't know if he was having a heart attack. I can't tell you what happened to the animal. But we got on the floor next to him. He was not breathing. I was listening to his chest. The heartbeat stopped. I am freaking out. It's close to midnight. I called an aunt of mine who works in a vet clinic, woke her up. She's like, "Who is this? What? The vet's closed. I don't know what to tell you." And we started praying in tongues, and we laid hands on this animal. He was probably out for a good 10 minutes. No movement, no heartbeat. And I can't explain to you what happened, but he got back up. He jumped back up, his little ears went up. Hey, I was there. I can't explain it to you. I just know that he was fine. He never had a health problem again. It's been, I mean, how people ask me, people from my childhood, "You still going to church? Why are you still going to church? Like, why hadn't I grown out of it by now?" Well, have I ever told you about my dog Sammy? I mean, I can't forget that. I can't explain it. I can't overlook it. That will be something that stays with me for the rest of my life. It was an instance where very rapidly my morning turned into dancing. And God does things like this every day. Sometimes it's small things, sometimes it's big things. And I just hope that this message helps remind us all to be joyful.
Yes. Yes. Hallelujah. Yes.